Good day, students. My name is Dr. Yolandi Slabbert, and I'm excited to present the first video tutorial for this learning unit. Since this module is built from a corporate communication perspective, which implies that corporate communication professionals should be the stakeholder relationship builders in their organization, it is important to provide you with an overview on terminology related to corporate communication or that are often used interchangeably, an overview on corporate communication, and the accepted definition for corporate communication for the purpose of this module. Now, before we can look at an accepted definition for corporate communication, one has to obtain an overview of corporate communication in relation to other associated terminology because it often creates confusion. If one studies communication literature, there are various interchangeable terms for communication as practiced by the organization. The most prominent, but not limited to, are business communication, management communication, organizational communication, corporate communication, public relations, integrated communication, and marketing communication or integrated marketing communication. Now, this table, as you can see on the screen, is adapted from Slabbert 2012 and will provide you with a definition of each of these terms to emphasize the differences of each in an attempt to more clearly contextualize corporate communication and to serve as an introduction for an eventual accepted definition for corporate communication. Now, let's start with the first term there on top. Business communication. Now, the definition thereof is that this is the professional discipline of writing, communicating and presenting in an organizational environment to achieve specific organizational objectives. It refers to communication within the organization. Its origin was from business writing and technical communication, and the key focus areas are written communication and achieving business objectives to maximize profit and or shareholder wealth. So one can see it's very specialized. Moving on to management communication, which refers to the communication between managers and employees, which is restricted to small groups. This communication occurs within the organization to affect the decisions of management. Its origin was from rhetoric and management studies. The key focus areas are to improve the oral and presentation skills of management and influencing management decision making. The third concept that I would like to highlight here is organizational communication. Now, this is concerned with the communication of organizations in a holistic sense. Therefore, communication between these organizations and its environments, as well as communication within the organization. So it's an over-encompassing component. It is also defined as communication employed to affect the structure of the organization. Its origin was in sociology, psychology, management studies, information systems, and speech communication. The key focus areas are communication focused on affecting the organizational structure or communication within the organizations and with other organizations. Then, the fourth term here is public relations. Now, that is it's a management function focused on establishing and maintaining mutual communication lines between an organization and stakeholders. Its origin was from journalism, publicity, and also communication studies. If we look at the key focus areas of public relations, it's obtaining favorable publicity, building and maintaining organizational stakeholder relationships, and evaluating public attitudes and behavior. Let's move on to corporate communication then. Now, this is a management function as well, focused on building favorable, mutually beneficial relationships between the organization and its strategic stakeholders. Its origin was from business studies and stakeholder studies. Now, the key focus areas, or area in this case, is to build sustainable relationships with strategic organizational stakeholders, which is what we want to get at in this module. Then integrated communication, or IC. Now, that is the strategic management process of organizationally controlling or influencing all messages and encouraging purposeful, data-driven dialogue to create and nourish sustainable stakeholder relationships. The origin was from stakeholder studies as well and integrated marketing communication literature. Very similar to corporate communication in the sense of stakeholder studies. The key focus areas: two-way interactive communication focused on establishing mutual benefits. And then lastly, the element that I want to highlight is marketing communication or integrated marketing communication, also known as IMC. Now, marketing communication, more commonly known today as IMC, is the process of managing all communication sources relating to a certain product or service to influence a customer's buying behavior favorably towards that product and or service. Now, the origin was from marketing and advertising, and the key focus areas are building brand relationships between the organization and the customer and obtaining and maintaining customer loyalty. All right. Now, from these definitions, it is evident that only public relations, corporate communication, and integrated communication are truly focused on building relationships with internal and external stakeholders. Although both integrated communication and corporate communication is regarded as an umbrella term for all internal and external strategic communication, integrated communication is seen as limited, as it is deemed to be a function that includes multiple deployment of elements of the corporate communication arsenal. And that was being stated by Kitchen and Schultz already in 2001. And this implies basically that corporate communication is a broader, all-encompassing concept. Furthermore, corporate communication and public relations are terms that are often used synonymously, especially when referring to public relations management. Corporate communication is also sometimes regarded as the evolution of public relations, according to Van Riel and Cornelissen, or conversely, that it includes public relations, according to Goodman 2006. Now, since this module follows a strong stakeholder-centric approach, corporate communication will be used as the preferred term when referring to all internal and external strategic communication practiced by the organization. Because, according to Cornelissen, the stakeholder concept takes center stage within corporate communication. This implies that the organization should view its surrounding environment in terms of its various strategic stakeholders on which its very survival depends. On this basis, now let's look at corporate communication specifically. According to Argenti and Foreman and Goodman, corporate communication is an organization's voice and the way in which the organization is projected to all stakeholders. Furthermore, it's an all-encompassing term that includes corporate reputation, corporate advertising and advocacy, employee communication, investor relations, media relations, and crisis communication, just to name a few. It's sometimes also regarded as communication management. According to Cornelissen, corporate communication is a function that regards communication as a strategic and planned set of actions that aligns the communication strategy with the overall corporate strategy. In this regard, it's a managerial framework to manage all organizational communication to enable the organization to build a favorable reputation and sustainable relationships with strategic stakeholders. It's a vocabulary of concepts and sets of techniques to facilitate an understanding and management of communication between the organization and its stakeholders. Lastly, according to Valentin, corporate communication is a strategic function that addresses contemporary challenges, such as the necessity to create confidence between internal and external organizational stakeholders. Now, the accepted definition based on all these facts that I've just provided is corporate communication could be regarded as an umbrella term for all internal and external strategic communication, with the core purpose of building and maintaining sustainable organizational stakeholder relationships with strategic stakeholders to contribute towards organizational success. Alright, this brings us to the end of this first video tutorial. The contents of this video served as a contextualization for the building and management of stakeholder relations from a corporate communication perspective and forms the foundation for the learning material that will follow in this module.